Next chapter, we begin with rendering user interfaces. So to understand how React works, it is beneficial to understand how browsers interpret your code to render the user interface. When a user visits your page, a request is made to a server to provide some data. The server returns an HTML file to the browser. For example, this sort of an HTML file, which then the browser reads and constructs the DOM, which is the document object model, which looks like this. Basically, a DOM is a representation of this. So we have the HTML element, we have the HTML over here. Then inside of the HTML, we have a body. Like a tree, we have the body over here. Then a division, we have the div over here. And inside of the div, we have h1 and an unordered list. We have h1, an unordered list, and a button as well. And within the unordered list, we have 3 list items. As you can see, the DOM is a representation of the HTML elements, and like a tree, it has parent and child relationships. It basically acts as a bridge between your code and the user interface. As you can see, the DOM over here is represented as the rendered UI over here. You can then use DOM manipulation methods and JavaScript to listen to user events and change the DOM. You can add, update, delete specific elements in the user interface and change style and content as well. So, first question, can you update the page content by manipulating the DOM? Yes, it is a bridge between the code and the UI, and you can easily manipulate the DOM to update the content which is being shown. Okay, let's begin by using vanilla JavaScript to create the elements dynamically. This will give you an appreciation of React when we come to it. I've already created a folder, and to it, let's add index.html. I've added a few things via the extensions tab over here, as you can see. For example, this HTML5 symbol, it comes from one of these material icon theme, probably. Yeah, I think it's this one. You can install it as well, and you'll have this symbol next to an HTML file. You have, like, for example, index.css, it'll have this different type of CSS. You have, let's say, .js, you'll have this. It just adds some extra symbols and colorings, but it doesn't have any functional impact on whatever we're doing. Anyway, let's just delete and delete, because at the moment we're just concerned with this index.html page. So let's begin by having this HTML and then a body element inside of it and a div. Nothing too crazy as yet. So first, what we do is let's give this div an ID of app. Hopefully, this is nothing new for you. As I said previously, HTML is not what we're studying in this course. If you're new to it, it would be good to watch a couple of crash course videos on YouTube or wherever, because it's not that difficult. And you'll be easily able to follow along. But then again, if you're new, I would recommend beginning with HTML and CSS and doing those courses first, then coming here, because it is going to get complex. So now, in order to write JavaScript inside of the HTML file without having to create a new file, what we do is we add script tag over here. We have this, and inside of it, for the attribute, we have a type, and it is text JavaScript. If we have a separate JavaScript file, then no need to do this, but we want it inside of the same HTML file for demonstration purposes. What we want to do is we want to insert an h1 tag inside of this div element. And the way we go about in JavaScript is we need to first get the element. So document dot get element by ID, and the ID is up. But of course we need to store it. So we just we give the variable, or in this case the constant name app. This is saying that the element of the ID of app can be referenced to by this variable. This is so that we do not have to keep on writing this entire line everywhere when we need to reference it. So then we continue on using other DOM methods in order to create the element that we are wanting to create. So let's go for a constant again called header, and we create element. Where is it? And what element do we want to create? An h1 tag. We created an h1 tag. We want to add something, some text inside of that h1 tag. For that, what we do is, again, we create a constant simple text. Let's call it hello React developers. Yep, we have this. Now we want to create a text node, which we can then insert into the header. Go ahead, content. Again, yeah, header content and document dot create node, and inside of that text node we insert this text. Okay, so now we've created the text node and we want to append it. Append meaning we want to attach it to the h1 tag. How do we do that? The h1 tag variable dot append child, attach it as a child basically. And what is that? The header content. Now we basically have h1 tag, which will have the node inside. That's what we're doing over here. And again, the thing is, the same way that we appended this to this, we need to append this to this. Otherwise, this will sort of just be floating in purgatory. So we take app and append child and the header. Now we want to run this on our browser in order to see what happens. And the way we do that is open index.html. Hey, hello React developers. So as you can see over here, this was all done with JavaScript. And if we go into the inspect over here, what happens is we have everything as we would expect to have if we had written everything in HTML. As you can see, this is the DOM. This is the source code. At least for this application, almost everything is inside of the script stack. But when we open up the DOM, it has everything over here as HTML. As you can see, the DOM of the page is different from the source code. The source code meaning the original file that we created. So the thing to note over here is the difference between the source code and the DOM is because the HTML represents the initial page content, the HTML. This bit of HTML code presents the initial page content, whereas the DOM represents the updated page after it was changed by the JavaScript code. And as you've already witnessed, you can modify the DOM with JavaScript, extremely powerful, but then again, just look at all of this code. All of this was just to add this bit over here. And you can imagine the more content that you want to show and the more components you want to display, the longer this is going to be, and it's going to make you want to pull your hair out, despite it making sure that you have work, but you want to yourself. We have two different types of programming over here. We have imperative and we have declarative. This form where you explain everything step by step as to what to do, that is imperative. Instead, for UI, we would like to have declarative programming, which lets you just write a little bit and lets the computer handle the low-level implementation. Basically, imperative is step-by-step instructions, whereas declarative is where you tell what you want it to do without you having to go into the details. For building user interfaces, again, the declarative approach is much preferred because it speeds up development. Instead of having to write the DOM methods, it would be helpful if developers were able to declare what they want to show instead of having to go into the weeds and explain everything step by step. And because of this, React is very popular. It's a declarative library. So I'll leave you with a question. Is the statement, a Hawaiian pizza please, declarative or imperative? You go to a shop, you tell them a Hawaiian pizza. Are you declaring something or is it imperative? All right. Thank you. Signing out.